cross the gun line. Yeah, you know that I'm on my grind. Yeah, I'm self-paid, self-employed. I gotta get paid, homie, I gotta get paid.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of SelfPaid. You have Dom, again, you have Alex here as well.
What up?
Today we actually have another special guest for you guys, and it's actually a female, our very first female that we have on SelfPaid. This is Alex Lomeli. Man, alright, I got it right. Cool. I was butchering like the last name, so I was like, alright, yeah, I had to make sure I get it right this time. But yeah, this is the first time we have a female guest on our podcast, which is gonna be great, especially if you listeners are out there and like, you know, we may have some females listening, depending on like, I don't know how our audience is right now, but it's good to it's good to have
it's not like gender driven anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
Like it's more so like I mean I followed you for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously I met you in middle school.
Yeah.
But,
middle school?
Yeah.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
You went to Frost?
Does that one have you too?
Yeah, it had to be.
Wait, you didn't go to my high school?
No, I went to Kennedy. Where'd you go?
Damn, Granada.
Yeah.
Like you
Damn, I
met
always thought it was
Frankie,
high
right?
school.
Frankie, his
Your older
sister.
sister. Yeah, but I met her in middle school.
Yeah.
Okay, so then alright, damn, alright.
It's the valley. It's small,
Yeah.
so we all met each other
For sure.
at some
Yeah.
point.
No, but yeah, I mean I followed you and I've seen like your mentality, like your thought process, like the little bits of social media that I've been able to see of you, which is why I was like, okay, let's ask Alex to be here. Which is I think a mentality like we were talking about briefly about like parents and all that stuff, but yeah, I mean we're happy to have you on.
Thank you. I'm actually very honored to be here, especially as your first female guest. Very honored, and yeah, it's a lot that I like to talk about, anyways. So
yeah, I just said. I mean, I guess we start off with like an intro. Like,
Mm-hmm.
Obviously they know your name. Who are you? What do you do? Just whatever you want to tell them, right?
yes, so I am a young female entrepreneur, and this is definitely my life, as in being a woman in a generally a man's world where they're mostly the ones expected to be successful. However, that's all I expect of me, is to be successful. And I definitely am someone who grew up in a family that is filled with gender roles, but even though I respect them, I'm definitely the one who's going to break out of them. And I have a lot of expectations for myself. So like I said, I am honored to be here, and I have a lot to talk about, especially when it comes to growing up in that environment, in a very traditional household. However, I now I'm 26 years old, and I live every day trying to prove to my parents that, yes, I love how you guys grew me up, but I'm going to do things my way.
Yeah, nice. I mean, that's kind of what Ed said, right?
Yeah.
The transitional character. I don't know if you ever heard that, but it's basically there's always one person within the family lineage that changes the routes of where that family heads.
Yes. I'm here to break those generational curses.
I think we all are. Everyone listening, I think that's what we try to be, is to be that one person that like I had this conversation in the meeting today. I mean, I'm talking to the guys today, and I'm telling them like, your kids will never have to go, like one of the guys, right? Like your kids will never have to talk about EBT in their life, right? And so that's like that. I think that like it gets me too. I'm like, damn, I am going to be that person in the house. And luckily, I have my brother right along me, right? But it's like weird, that's going to change the way that our future families are going to be portrayed. Like, I don't know if this is stretching, but like the Rockefellers, right? Like generational wealth is like what we're shooting for.
Oh, definitely. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I guess we'll just jump right into it, huh?
Literally.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, tell them like. How did you get started doing what you do?
Okay, so I currently own my own digital agency, LLC, but I want to, go back into time and kind of get to where I started. I have a very traditional household, like I mentioned. My dad has always provided. My mom has always been taking care of the home, taking care of me and my siblings. I am the oldest of 5, and
damn.
yeah, I love my siblings and everything, but I definitely helped raise them because I was the oldest. I was the female. I was born to pretty much know how to cook and clean immediately, right? However, it wasn't really expected of me to become a millionaire, but that's gonna happen. That's my goal. And I went to school. It was expected of me to go into college right away. And I definitely went with it. I no questions asked or anything. It just became natural. It was normal. I went to school, and looking back, I'm like, that was definitely like my safety net. It was what allowed me to live my life in my parents' home, because I was still living with them at the time, and them not ask any questions. As long as I'm going to school every day, that's it. It's my safety net. That's what college was for me. So I pursued my BA. I got my BA in psychology. And then after that is when like I really questioned, like, okay, what am I gonna do? I love psychology, but it wasn't gonna be the way I was gonna make my money, because I didn't want to become a therapist. And there's other things you can do with it, but I definitely didn't really want to pursue it much more. I knew I didn't want to get my master's in it. So then I'm like, okay, let me get into nursing. I've always been interested in the medical field, always. I think it's because my mom made me like watch ER and Grey's Anatomy growing up, and I still watch that to this day. I love it. But I didn't really question, like, what do I want to do with my life? Where are my passions? And I'm like, okay, let me take these nursing classes. And then 2020 hit, and the big thing about 2020 is the pandemic. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to be stuck at home anyways. Like, what am I going to do with my time? And I would always see this on social media, and I always wanted to get into stocks. But on social media, what was really popping at that time was Forex and the foreign exchange market. So I'm like, okay, this is probably something I should get into. Like, I should get some type of habit going on for myself.
Like learn a new skill.
Yes, learn a new skill that's going to be profitable. And someone from my elementary school got into it, and she was always posting about it. I'm like, okay, so this is somebody I've known. Let me ask her about it. And it pretty much took over my whole life that year for moving forward. I got into trading Forex, and the way that I joined was in an online academy. However, you join essentially a team, and you're put into this group chat with all these people, and everybody's students trying to learn the same thing that you're trying to learn. So you develop relationships, and as I'm learning, there's also this other way to make money when you join this online academy, and that's network marketing. So looking back, that's definitely like two ways that you could have made money when you join this online academy. However, my whole priority was just trading. And I was really, really deep into that. I got to learn a lot right away. I actually became profitable right away.
Yeah, that's very hard too.
Yeah, and it's, I'm so grateful for what it had taught me, because it's, a 24/7 online academy. So I was stuck at home and just learning, and that's how I was able to become profitable right away. And then I started posting about it, and then people started hitting me up, asking me questions about it. So I also developed my little team, and, I was making, some money with that, but definitely it took a lot more of my time to have to like have a team and teach them, and it was taking away from my trading. So as like a year went on, I'm like, okay, that's not really what I'm even there for. I want to trade, that's it. But something I'm very grateful for is that when you were part of this team and you're learning from this online academy, they also have these Zooms where they teach you about entrepreneurship and really about personal development and just mindset. And that is, to this day, like, wow, thank goodness I really
took that route,
because it definitely got me to where I am here today. And
so before that, there was no entrepreneurial experience. It was literally like, but that's what
in my life, no, I really was not exposed to that.
So the Zoom kind of give you like
I think it's more so like, again, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's the fact that like now you're working for you, right? It's like you're no longer putting on, like for me, bro, I put on an apron, start making drinks, right? Like I'm trading that time for this money. But I think that's when you learn, like, okay, I can develop the skill set and make money from it.
Yes.
Right? Without relying on what's my manager going to say, or what's this going to, like, maybe that's the transition? Do you think that's when the transition happened to where you're like, I want to run a business now?
Definitely, because even when I was learning all this in the pandemic, I was still working. I was still working technically a 9 to 5 just from home.
And you're a nurse.
I was going to school. I was taking nursing classes, but I was not a nurse. I haven't become a nurse. But I was working as in medical billing, so still kind of in medical field. But I hated waking up. I would wake up early and trade like 6:30 a.m. because we're Pacific Standard Time. So that's when the market opens. The New York market opens. I hated waking up at 6:30, and then at 9 o'clock I had to go work and started working for somebody else. And I already made literally more than what my daily pay was gonna be. So I was just like, this is weird. Like this isn't normal. Like I shouldn't be able to make this amount of money in like 2 hours and then have to go work 8 hours for a fraction of that. So definitely, you know, it made me reflect, and then I got exposed to more entrepreneurship calls, and that's when I really started to like figure it out. Because before that, like I said, like my parents didn't really expect me to become my own boss in any sort of way. And that's when I just was like, no, over like a year or so, I quit my job. I was making my money mostly from trading at the time. And then I always feel like the universe is looking out for me, but this is definitely like a prime example. I was presented with an opportunity to do digital marketing for a plastic surgeon. And I knew of him through my family, and I just started working for him, and it just literally
like rolled into
it was a snowball effect after that. It took me a year to file my LLC for it, which is Lomeli Media. And I have a couple of doctors now, and I'm primarily just plastic surgeon based with that right now. But I'm right there ready to start hiring and get more fields under.
So I wanted to touch base on that earlier, like just a couple of seconds ago. You're talking about how that's when you figured it out, right? So because I felt that too when we just had this conversation just before shooting, but it was like we didn't know anything. Right when you started, it was like, what the hell do I know? Which I wanted to talk about because I think it's the confidence to start comes from, okay, I figured it out. This is what I want to do. But I'm sure opening the LLC, even prior, right, is like doing what you need to do. We talked about it, like Dom asked you, and it was like, did you know what you were doing when you started? And the answer is, I mean, I think like a lot of the time.
Yeah, majority of the time is no.
Right?
I didn't know anything really that became with that. Besides the fact like, oh, well, I'm doing this for my own Instagram, posting every now and then here and there. And, you know, I didn't know how to edit really. And that's what I do pretty much with a lot of my time right now. And then have to look at it in a bigger sense. Like, what's the message you're sending with your Instagram? I didn't know how serious Instagram was until it became literally what pays my bills and what pays my lifestyle. And yeah, so I'm so grateful for Instagram. I know people can like talk crap about it, but you know, it might take away a lot of your day, but maybe because you're not using it right and you don't know how to become profitable from Instagram. But I definitely am so grateful for it.
Yeah. So one thing I wanted to just go back on was that, right? So it's not about, you don't have to wait for the perfect opportunity, whether that's having understood everything to start. It's more important that you do start. That way, it's like, because this is the truth. It's three people who can attest, like, who can talk about the same thing. When I started, I didn't know anything. I'm sure when you started, like, it was a complete different scene, and even for you, it's a different scene. But it's more important that you do start, but also if you continue, it's like you don't quit, right? Because we talk about it all the time. Like, I wanted to quit so many times, but there's a quote. It's actually Andy Frisella. And it's it used to impress me when people had the courage to start, but now it impresses me when people have the fortitude to keep going. Right? And
yeah.
right? And that's what it is. It's like when you don't start, when you're first thinking about starting, it's like, oh my god, like she did it, she started, he did it, he started. But then it's now when you know what you know, it's like
they're doing it.
Holy crap, they're still doing it.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what I want to touch on, because it was 2 years since, almost 3 years since the pandemic.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that was a negative aspect. So this is something we learned. I learned recently. I've always knew it. We always hear like, hey, find the good out of bad times.
Yeah.
But it hits when like, someone can say the same thing, but it hits when it's like presented in a different light. So this weekend we went to Nashville for the RK Syndicate Live, and basically it was talking about finding light in adversity, and that's basically what you did, right? Is COVID happened. That's how I was. I was stubborn. I was like, this is gonna screw everyone's business.
Yeah.
But you're standing. You made it through.
Mm-hmm.
So kudos for that.
I was definitely an employee before, and now I'm like my own boss. So definitely grateful for the pandemic. However, you want to.
Yeah. How was it with I know you said like you were raised like a certain way and stuff like that.
Yeah.
When you did transition to like starting to become like your own boss and like stuff like that, how did your family kind of like come about you? Did they give you shit for it, or did they like, were they okay with it? They're like, all right, bet, like she's gonna try it, go ahead, or was there like kind of like?
There was definitely some questions that my parents had. That thankfully they've always supported whatever I do, always. However, it was, foreign territory for them. They really thought that I would probably be married by now, have kids by now, and be taken care of like that by now. But I know I made my parents proud because I take care of myself. And when that all started, when I really started to branch out from working my 9 to 5, get into trading, to them that was so weird. Like they didn't really know anything about trading. And it's just looking back, I'm like, damn, did they say anything negatively? Like they really didn't, and I'm so grateful for that. They've never said anything negative. They just wanted to make sure that I knew what I was doing. But they also know that I'm a very, I guess confident but also intelligent person, where I'm not gonna let myself like take my, become a bum. Like they know I require a lot, and I expect a lot of myself. So they put that trust in me. But definitely I had to like just let them know more, like communicate with them. I couldn't just do it. I talked to my mom every day, so she saw the transition. She saw me gradually like kind of branch out, like, okay, you don't want to go to school anymore. Like I was trying to pursue nursing. I'm like, no, and I had to start with like, well, no, I'm gonna take a semester off.
Ease her into it.
And then I'm gonna get back into it. Like, let me just really focus on this trading stuff. And then I would show her my profits. So she's like, okay, and then like she'll tell my dad, and then like my dad would be like, okay, so what's going on, Alex? Like, I'm like, well, listen, like this is what I do. And I literally had to like pull up a chart and show him and trade in front of him. And he's like, oh, okay. And then he ended up giving me money to like put into it. So to get his own portfolio going. So thankfully, like they had a lot of confidence in me, but it was just, weird to them. I think it's still kind of weird to them, especially I think to my brother. He's 2 years younger than me, but he is just like, what the heck is Alex doing? Because to them, it's like I'm doing so much.
Are you the only one in your family, or like as far as like your siblings, like
trade?
They're doing like just like the entrepreneurial lifestyle? Or?
So my dad actually has his own unique custom carpentry business. But he always beforehand worked with like a boss. Like, he always had a boss growing up. That's how I remember. Like he always worked for a company. But now he's been doing it more and more, and honestly, it's happened since the pandemic too. And
it's crazy, huh? There's always, I think, when you're presented with a hard time, it's literally fight or flight. Where it's like, okay, because that's probably what it went through, right? It's like, I can't do this anymore because everything closed, but I can do it myself. Right? And that's crazy to think that, because our story we got our first office was 2 weeks before the entire country shut down.
Yeah.
Crazy. Did you guys still have to pay like monthly?
Of course, yeah, because commercial rent was considered different than residential, like where the like mortgage and stuff you can push back, or like you had that whole like you don't have to pay and then you whatever, it was like deferred
There were
payments.
so many,
Yeah, we were like, hey, let's see if we can bring it up to the landlord. Like, yeah, you don't qualify for that. Commercial properties don't. And I was like, well, I mean, it might be right or wrong, or maybe they just told us what they needed to hear.
Yeah.
But it was like, ah, shit. But we literally made it work. Like, that's, I don't know.
You had to.
So that's the point. The point that I bring that up because it's like, I think a lot of people try to spend a lot of time trying to avoid these hard times when naturally they come, right? The hard times always, like, it's not to say that you're living a terrible life, that's why you have hard times, but the hard times do come, whether you have money in your bank or you don't have money in your bank.
Mm-hmm.
So you might as well prepare to fight that time, right? And it's literally like what your dad did, what you did, like even us, is to find during those times, like, oh shit, how do I take advantage of this time? Mm-hmm. Which I think is super important for a lot of people because these hurdles in life do come. And
they do.
And I had this conversation this morning. It's like the amount of money in your bank does not change the fact that hard times will come or not.
Mm-hmm.
It still comes. You learn to, whether it's to combat it or to be like, you learn how to defend, or like you're better equipped for that, right? To handle those times. Which I think it's a good time where you created something out of a bad time, and I think that leverages you, right? Versus somebody who's like had everything and just So that's crazy.
I mean, definitely, like going off on that. Like some of the best problems to have are the ones that money can solve.
Yeah.
It's like, what do you do? Okay, make more money. There's honestly an infinite amount of ways to make money.
Yeah.
So I definitely agree with that because the hard times come regardless.
Yeah, I think what I've noticed is like. And you've heard this before where people are like, oh man, like something happened, so I have to cut back on expense. Mm-hmm. When reality is that exactly what you said. It's not about like, oh, how to save. Not necessarily. Yeah, it's smart to save money. I'm an avid believer in like, saving money.
Yeah.
But it's to use your head to exactly what Alex said. Is how do I make more money? And I think that's helped us. A lot.
And I feel like those hardships that, like, whenever you go through anything or whatever the case is, they make you in a way, like they're also lessons at the end of the day, so you do gotta like appreciate them. I mean, maybe at the time that like it's happening, it sucks, but like they make us at the end of the day, and that's one thing that's like very important to kind of like look back and be like, oh, I'm actually grateful for those times because it changed you and it made you adapt to whatever was coming on, and that's also like a good thing about that.
Do you have any hardships? I'm sure you do. I'm saying, do you have any that stick to your mind that helped you become who you are?
Yeah, so it's, I don't know, a little funny to talk about. But when the pandemic started, I was like newly single out of a like 3-year relationship. Yeah. And I helped him come up in his business. Uh-huh. And then it's like our relationship ended bad. And it's like, damn, like, fuck, I literally helped you get, where you are. But I mean, don't get me wrong, he's very, successful in his own. And it was just like, shit, like the pandemic happened. I'm like, I don't have anything going on for myself. Like I spent this past, couple of years helping this person develop their business. And I'm like, I don't have anything for myself. So I was like, yeah, I have my BA, but like I did that for my parents. I'm like, what do I have that's mine? And when I got into trading, I was like, okay, this is like, it was addicting. Like, I'm like, I'm making this money by myself. This is mine. And then I started teaching people, which felt great too. Yeah. And then I got exposed to doing social media and digital marketing for the plastic surgeon. And I'm like, okay, all. So
you would say like the breakup kind of like pushed you in a way to like, okay, I'm gonna figure out my own shit.
Yeah, because it reminded me of actually like, God bless my parents, but I saw that they had me at a young age, so I saw them go through a lot. Yeah. My dad didn't act right until my older years, and I mentioned like my mom was a homemaker and she is like the best mom ever. She loved all of us, the kids, and she really, really loved my dad. And so she stuck through all of that, but also because like she didn't have a job of her own. She didn't have finances of her own. She couldn't support herself or me and my siblings outside of that relationship because, you know, my dad was the provider. And so I always was like, I can never be like that. I have to make sure I have some money in my account.
When did you realize that? Like, when you were younger, or?
I always, okay, so there was like I'm like, hi mom, I don't want you to like, I don't want, like, I know you love my dad, and my dad loves you so much now too. but there was a moment where my mom was like, I'm only with your dad because of you guys. And I'm like, shoot, like, my mom is unhappy because of me. And then I let it go, but then she started again probably a year or two later. And I'm like, just leave him, I don't care anymore. Like, I don't care if you guys get divorced. And I was probably like 12 or something at the time.
That's crazy.
And then it's like, okay, now she's hearing me say this, but like, okay, that's not the only reason why you're with my dad, is because you really can't leave. And so I always known that, right? I always knew I wanted to make sure I worked. I was never gonna be like a trophy wife. I want to look like one, but I don't want to be a trophy wife. And so when I guess that breakup happened at the beginning of the pandemic, I'm like, damn, like
full circle.
Yeah, I was like, how the heck am I kind of like right here, right now? But it definitely, I was like, no, I need to do something. I was like, honestly, when I was like more motivated than ever when the pandemic started. And you know, I was able to have like, you know, my 9 to 5 and still make money, but I had money to play around with, and that's how I got into trading. And ever since that is what really was like the pivot point in my life.
Yeah, I feel like, and I'm not saying go break up with your significant other, but I feel like anytime you kind of go through a breakup, like, I'm just like, well, for me, it's like I'm just driven. It's just like, let's go, let's keep going. Like, I want to take my mind off of that and just like go harder, or go 10 times harder. I'll go to the gym 10 times harder, not like, you know.
Yeah, but if you see this, like, if you notice the trend, it comes from hardship. It's not about the breakup. Yeah. But it's always hardship. If you've noticed, like, you know, your first heartbreak, you're like, I'm gonna get jacked. Yeah. What do you get jacked? Exactly.
No, it's so true. You can always tell when somebody just got out of a relationship because
like,
they're posting themselves at the gym now, and like they're going out the time now, and I think you forget that. I think what it is like, this is gonna sound dumb, but it's true. Is in relationships, if you're not in the right one, you get comfortable. Yep. Yeah. Right. And that's even life. When you get comfortable, you like in business and whatever it is, you get comfortable, you don't grow. Exactly. Or you stay where you're at. So it takes a break. If it takes a breakup for you to get motivated, by all means, that's a great motivator. Again, like you said, don't be breaking up with people, but I understand that the trend is hardship can fuel
success.
It's the success or the motivation that you need, right? Yeah. Because if you think about all the bad times that you've had, there's always good that comes from it. And this is not to sound like a fairy tale poem or anything, but it's the idea is like, any time that I struggled, good always came from it. And even with like my last relationship ended because I was starting a business, and I came from a salary job where I was like, okay, I got a lot of time for you. You know, I was in the Marine Corps, so by 4 a.m. out of the house, but 4 p.m. I'm back.
All this time.
And I got all this time now because I don't have to think about what I do in the Marine Corps when I'm off. Versus now you think about it 24/7.
Oh yeah.
So that transition was hard because it was like, dude, what do I pick? Do I pick like this relationship, or do I pick what I need to do? Because I didn't have things like handed to me, nonetheless. Like, so even that came the fact that like the fact that we can relate to these memes, it goes to show you that everyone agrees with it. Like, we laugh at this, we can all see the same meme and all laugh at it because we all relate.
It's all really fun.
Right. But yeah, I don't know. Don't be breaking up with your girlfriend or boyfriend.
Literally, but you know, analyze the situation. You decide off that.
But it's that's true. When you're your own boss, your job essentially becomes 24/7 now.
Yeah.
And so if you're not in the right relationship, it's gonna take a toll. And that's the reason. Like some people, like when it comes to being entrepreneurs, there's like two types of people in this world. You're either an entrepreneur, your own boss, or you're going to be an employee, and and that's okay too. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
You get great benefits being an employee. There's a lot of good things that come out of that, and sometimes it takes years for an entrepreneur to get to the right place where they're successful and profitable. But you definitely want to make sure that you're spending your time wisely, and sometimes the people around you grow out of them, and that's just what happens.
Yeah. I mean, that's what it is. This is not like, I know what it's like. I know plenty of successful 9-to-5s, W-2s, and in the same token, I also know very unsuccessful entrepreneurs. Nonetheless, I think more so what I've learned this weekend is that it's a culture behind it. It's not, because the idea of like, entrepreneurship has been so overhyped that everyone thinks it's like, okay, me too. Like,
and I think it's easy.
Yeah, like, you started,
it's luxury all the time.
I think what I really enjoyed about becoming an entrepreneur was when I was in the Marine Corps. I did well. Like I was always, I did what I needed to do. I went past that, but like I hated that, like, I had other sergeants. I was a sergeant, he was a sergeant. I worked harder and he got paid the same as me.
Oh yeah.
And that's like, what the hell?
Mm-hmm.
So when I transitioned into working for me, I was like, okay, now I'm responsible for like my outcome.
Yeah.
Right. And that was the culture behind it, which I loved, was the fact that, okay, it's who's gonna work hard, who's gonna outwork somebody, like, and that's kind of what drove me to continue to push. But on the other side of that, it's the fact that it's not always pretty. Like, I think when Andy said this, it hit me where it was like, my first couple of years in business, the only thing important to me was making money. And I've said this before, like, my first year, I didn't give a shit about anything. Like, that first year was like the year where I made the most money in such a short amount of time compared to, I'm not saying I made billions, I'm just saying like I made a certain amount of money that would have taken me over a year. And I was like, what the hell?
Mm-hmm.
And I was so driven by that. But I preach this where it's like, once you start taking money out of the equation, don't get me wrong, I love money. And I'm not like ashamed to say that, but I know that money's the byproduct of what you provide. Mm-hmm. It's always the byproduct. Where like, I was talking to my brother Ryan early on, where I was like, look, if you stop focusing on just that money and you provide other avenues of whatever it is, it'll come.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that's something I've learned from Andy as well, is that you have to provide value, and essentially you have to be, if you want to be making money in something you're passionate about, you have to find a problem and solve it.
Yeah.
And money will come.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something I definitely learned from him, like, early on. And you just have to be in it completely, not just for the money.
Yeah, I believe that. That's why you hear like the seasonal entrepreneur, like the person that goes from one business to the next business, and he goes from, I used to be, I'm not even gonna say things because there's so many people that, I'm not trying to offend. I'm just saying, like, if that's you, maybe understand that there's this saying where they say the grass isn't greener on the other side, it's greener where you water it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And when I saw that, I was like, damn, it hit me, where it's like, and I was proud that through all the hardships, all the times I wanted to quit, I was like, fuck it, I'm just gonna keep doing what I need to, and then maybe it'll flip around. Mm-hmm. And that's what it was for me, where I have acquaintances who jump from one line of, or one business to another, or from here to here, to because it seems better on that side, when the reality is how you do one thing is how you do everything. So if you slack off here, you're probably gonna slack off there. If you can't do something here, you probably won't do it there. But yeah, that's how I see things, because especially with the culture of entrepreneurship, you have to be able. I think you have to be able to embrace like the ugly behind it, right? And like be proud of that, because I'm sure like when you started, I'm sure you had months, maybe even like weeks or months where you got no pay, but it's still like, okay, I'm gonna figure the fuck out.
Yeah, like shit's not pretty in the beginning.
Yeah,
for sure.
Never is.
Yeah, we were gonna ask you, obviously we talk about hardships, what keeps you focused during those times? Like, what's your why? Like, why do you do what you do?
Or why is it like where you want to go? Why do you want to be a millionaire? Like, why do you want to have that? Why do you want that?
So I definitely want to be the person in my family who breaks those generational curses. So that's one reason. My family, my parents, I want to prove them so proud. I want to be the one that has the biggest house in the family, and I host Christmas. There's reasons like that for me.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it.
And also, like, I definitely want to look at looking into the future. I want my future family, my kids, to live a luxurious life. And like the best way to get there is when there's two successful people in the home with two big incomes in the home. I don't want it be relied on the man, and like that's another thing I kind of want to talk about is that for men it's hard sometimes. Like, you're expected to make money. You're expected to be able to not just make money for yourself, but your family, and that could be a lot on a man. However, and on a woman, it might not be expected. Some women are really grown up in very traditional households, and as long as they get married to somebody who has money, that's enough. But it's like, you have to break that double standard, because as a man, like, it's expected of you, and as a woman, someone like me, I'm trying to break that, but it doesn't come as easy for me. I didn't get to realize that until 2020. It's 2022 now. When I was 24. Imagine if I knew that before. Like, imagine I really felt that before. I would be a millionaire already. I'm not there yet, but I will be. And it's just, at some point you have to just realize that for yourself. And I do feel for men, it's expected of you, and life is hard, and trying to figure it out is hard. But that's like expected of you guys. And for a woman, it's not so much. So it's like, hopefully these women that do want it realize it sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I feel that. Like, I'm not saying like one's harder or not, but I have felt, because my mom said this. I grew up in a very traditional, like, Eastern household, right? Where it's like, that's my mom. I was raised by my mom, two boys with one mom. So like, I obviously, like, same with him. Where it's like, I understand the value of a woman, meaning I cherish my mom. Like, she's a female, obviously, and she taught me how to be a male, like a man.
Yeah.
And I think there's a difference between being a male and a man. And it's oftentimes the father's role to teach the boy how to be a man, but I learned that from a mom, right? But she would tell me that. It's like, hey, you have to bust your ass, because you can't marry into, like, no woman wants a loser. I'm not saying you're, but whatever. It's like, no woman wants an undriven, undisciplined man. Like, and
you
so
have
on.
no choice.
So
you have to be.
yeah, and I feel like that's kind of what helped me, because nonetheless I knew, like, one way or another, I'm gonna make it. I don't know how, but I will, right? Which is, I explained this earlier to you, where I felt like I wasted a lot of my time I'm going off a little bit now, but it's trying to please parents, right? Which I felt like I wasted a lot of my life trying to, my mom said I have to go to school, right? And again, I've talked about this before, where I'm not saying school's bad, but you have to be able to make the decision for yourself. I think a lot of the times where growing up requires that, is the decision-making process. And I think that's the hard part of entrepreneurship, and even the good part of entrepreneurship, is that you make the decision. I don't have to wait on my manager to be like, yo, we're gonna change the way we present our food now. It's like, I want to change it, I'm gonna do it, right? And I think that's what we talked about. That is what we talked about prior, is that sometimes trying to please somebody else, doing what you do for somebody else, is not always the right decision.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, could you agree? Like,
Yeah, no, for sure.
Like, I felt that where it's like, I told my mom, I was like, look, I'm not going to school no more. And it was very similar where you said, I'm going to take a semester off. I was like, yo, I'm going to Germany. I'll start next semester.
Mm-hmm.
And I came back from Germany. I was like, yeah, I'm not going to school anymore. But yeah, I think in doing so, like, this is what I want to talk about, is being able to make the decision for yourself, right? Doing things for you. Or we always talk about it, right? We talk about it all the time. Like, bro, you're buying, your rent's $3,000. Your shoes cost $2,000. Who are you trying to impress?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that's when it hit me. Like, dude, some people pay $3,000, $4,000 for more for rent or whatever. Maybe $4,000 pushing it, right? But like, their rent's $2,000. You have no business wearing $2,000 shoes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is not to talk bad about it, because you're gonna sit there and fact check me. Yes, I have nice shoes, but a lot of times, like they're gifts or whatnot. But it's the fact that, like, you're doing things for somebody else,
Mm-hmm.
who 9 times out of 10 don't care. Like, parents are the outliers, right? You're doing things for your parents, and I think there's nobility in, hey, I finished school because it's a promise I made for my parents. That's one thing, but it's another thing where you asked yourself, like, what am I doing now? I think that's what makes this change, is when you can ask yourself the question, like, what am I doing? But I think a lot of people go to school where they're like, oh, I'm only doing this for my mom, or I'm only doing this for my parents, and it's like, what are you doing after?
Exactly.
Right?
That's the big question.
Yeah.
That's the big question. Even to, like, I mean, I'm not saying anything again. If you're going to school, go ahead. Like,
Yeah.
But like, even as like my own sister, like, she's going to school and she's still going, and she's like, or she just graduated actually, and got like her BA and all this stuff, and I'm just like, okay, like, what now? Like, what are you gonna do now? And that's always the big question at the end of the day. If you are going to school, just like try to figure out that answer before kind of continuing, because when it's already wasted 4 or 6 years of your time, and you ask yourself, what am I going to do now? You never, that's going to be the hardest part. And when you're, hopefully you're still living with like your parents and family, where you used to go, like, don't have to pay rent and stuff like that, so that you can figure it out. But you can literally save a lot of time just asking yourself that question. Okay, if I get this diploma, go to school for this next couple of years, like, what am I going to do after? And try to like have that game plan, that end plan.
Yeah, I think that what I learned is you always start with the end in mind,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's not about like, do I believe school is important? Yeah, I think it'll teach you a lot of different things outside of what you think you're there for. I think it'll teach you time management. I think it'll teach you discipline.
Mm-hmm.
Those 8 a.m. classes is not fun. Like, I know it. Managing the schedule, managing traffic. Oh, I got to be here by this time to be here by this time. Like, all that, I think, is also important skills that you learn while going to school.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is, you have to ask yourself why you're committing to this time. Like, is it because your mom said so, or is it because you want to? And I feel like when there's internal motivation, it's stronger than, oh, this is what is supposed to be done because, X, Y, Z.
Right.
And 9 times out of 10, there's the why we ask you, like, what's your why? That's beginning with the end in mind.
Mm-hmm.
Is like, okay, the end is you want this, or you aspire to have whatever this is. That's why I do what I do now. Mm-hmm. And I think when your goal or your whys are strong enough, there's never a point in time where you're like, fuck, I can't show up today. Like, you'll always find a way to show up.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But yeah, like, don't do just because, like, do things because it's something that you want to do, right? Don't do things to try to please other people. It's the same aspect of buying, not like shit you don't need to impress people who don't care, right? So just keep that in mind, because that's always my advice. Is like, I see young kids, or not young kids. I'm sorry, I don't mean to call them kids, but like I see younger people buying shit that they don't need to impress people. Where it's like, yeah, it's nice that you look like, I don't know, like you forget about it the next day, right?
Yeah, it's out of sight, out of mind. Doesn't
Right?
matter.
Where it's like now it's like, oh crap, like dude, those are sick.
And then you look at like even this weekend, like you look at like the multi-millionaires, right? The people that have a lot of money, right? And like we were just like at a convention, or I mean at a seminar and everything, right? And Annie Vercel is wearing brand new Converse. Yes, they're brand new, but they're like $60, right? Regular jeans, regular shirt, and you know $200,000 watch. Like it's different when like you don't need to be wearing that all this designer shit and all this other stuff. And you know, even like myself, obviously you guys know that I own like a sneaker store and stuff. I thought like, oh yeah, I had to be dripped down, I had to do all this stuff, like, you know, blah blah blah. But like now, just like starting to realize, I'm like, I don't want to be that person. Like, yes, I have like, I can buy the cheapest shit and still make it work, you know.
Yeah.
But like,
I mean, we're not saying, I'm not talking bad about it. I'm saying if that's what you like, by all means,
yeah,
like have that balance, sure. But it's like, what I'm talking about is you have nothing, like that idea. Just because you can buy it does not mean you can afford it, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, you have, I don't know, $5,000 in your bank account. Can you buy a $2,000 pair of shoes? Yeah, of course you could, but you can't afford that, right? And it's because like even myself, like I told Dom this, but like one of my goals is I want my mom to be able to go to any designer store she wants, pick stuff out of the shelf and be like, all right, it's under my son's tab.
boom,
And walks
out.
Right? Materialistic nonetheless. Does she need it? Probably not. But that's a goal that I have.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay, just give them my name, they'll bill me. Right? But
You want them to know you, but you also want your mom to be like,
and it's like, yeah, of course, it's not like no one needs a $400,000 watch.
Yeah.
But I want one.
Literally.
You get me? Like, but that's the truth. Where it's like, I don't even know where we were going with this, but it's like we always get like when we talk about this, we get so like, because I'm passionate about it. Like I am big in like making sure you are. I don't know. It's like maybe it's financial literacy, but it's like you have to know why you do what you do, and don't get lost because now you have a little bit of money to play with, and now you're back in square one. Like remember why you do what you do, and a lot of the times, I feel like it's because we ask everybody like, "What's your why?"
Mm-hmm.
And 9 times out of 10, the why is so big that it's like, okay, I'm gonna keep showing up, right? Where, again, I don't know if you answered it, but that's how you stay focused, right?
Mm-hmm.
I assume it's like.
Well, definitely. I feel like I also like practice a lot of personal development every day. I think it's super important to have some moments to yourself where you're able to like wind down from everything and really reflect.
Yeah.
Like one of my favorite things to do is watch sunset, and I will read, and then that's after I've already gone to the gym. I've already did my work for the day, and that's when I really get to like remember like, okay, this is me, like this is my life, like what am I gonna do tomorrow? Like, you know, you have to take those moments for yourself where you're able to reflect and also, you know, look and have your focus on your vision, like look into the future and think about like what are you gonna do to pursue the things you want.
Yeah. So what advice is it that you would give the younger you, or like the younger girl watching, or even girls your age watching, who's scared to start, or whatever it is? What's any advice that you would give?
I think it's just talk to yourself, talk to someone you might look up to, and ask them questions. I don't think I communicated enough back then. I don't think I ever really questioned like what is it that I want to do, or what is it that I like, and I can make that profitable. You know, like I mentioned, like my mom's an amazing mom, but I don't think we had enough conversations about what it is I should do in my career, or you know, I never got exposed to that early on. I feel like if I had, I probably could have figured it out sooner, but nonetheless, you know, everything happens in its own divine timing, and I feel like looking back, I wish I could have just been like, okay, find something that you like and make it profitable. You know, what do you like? And I actually, like, I have a younger sister and she's 19. I told her, I'm like, you know, is there anything that you really like or that's going on in your life? You know, maybe we can like find a way to make a business out of it. And then she's like, she still like hasn't had you know much exposure, I think. But I told her, I'm like, hey, look at all these girls who are, you know, doing lashes and doing nails, and like, you know, they're making good money from that. Like, I spend good money on like my lashes. I'm like, you know, you don't want to do that, Emily? And she's like, you know what? I think so. I'm like, okay. I'm like, how about think about it? Like, you know, the beauty world is really taking off, I feel, and
it's just like one of those. It's like barbering. It'll never go away.
Yeah.
it's never
Like, you're
go
always
away.
gonna want to do your lashes.
I'm
The next
always
young
gonna
girl,
want to-
is
And
gonna
you
want your
want
lashes.
to pick somebody that you're gonna be loyal to, because you don't want to try new people all the time. That's scary.
Shout out Erin. I've been with him for a long time.
Yeah, so I'm like, I told her, I'm like, you know, if you can find something you want to do, I will help you fund it. I told her, I'm like, I'll pay for your esthetician school. I'm like, if you don't want to do that, you know, let's find something else that you can do.
Yeah.
So I try to do that for my sister.
Yeah, you're like the nudge.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I feel like what I think a lot of people, maybe not us, because your gap with your sister is a little bit bigger.
Mm-hmm.
Where my brother's 3 years, you know, right, and so on. But it's like, sometimes they don't want to listen, you know. But because it just, because it's like, oh, you know, I'm just trying to enjoy me, like, listen to me. But it's like, I'm not. I think the thing is like trying to find that balance of like, look, I'm not trying to nag, but I'm trying to push you in the right like just give you some ideas to push you in the right direction, because it's the mistake I made, or it's the route that because maybe she doesn't want to do it, right? That's the like, you have to also have that in mind. But it's like, you know, like, because I'm sure you have that conversation because she also wants more success. Like, she wants success. She wants to.
Yeah, right? She wants to make more money, and I know that much about like that. But she's just like, oh, let me go apply here, apply there. Yeah. You know, she's making her money, but I'm like, you can. I just wish that I was exposed to like maybe the beauty world back then. I'm like, damn, I could have like my own, you know,
whatever
med spa or something. And that's actually something I would love to do. So I'm like, if I had, you know, got exposed to it sooner, like maybe I could have by now. So I just try to be that person that kind of just exposes her to more.
Yeah. All right. Well, from any of like all the like growth, success that you've gained, accomplishments, right? Are you most proud of? Like, what are you most proud of?
I think definitely starting my LLC, because I'm telling you, when I was little, I knew I'd be wealthy, but I didn't know how. You know, I didn't know I was going to be my own boss, essentially. I had to really just be more exposed to it. And once I filed and I, you know, got a bunch of mail in my LLC name, that made me the most proud, because I'm like, and it says it's my real name, you know, it says Lomeli. And that's something like, okay, that's the beginning of what's going to be a lot more. Yeah. So that made me the most proud. And, you know, I love that my mail sometimes goes to my parents. I'm like, okay, like, you see it. So it's just, I really want to make my parents proud. So definitely the LLC is one of my biggest moments so far. And it happened this year, so I'm proud of that.
Congrats. That's
Thank you.
Do you remember your first time? Like, seeing. I remember the first time seeing my credit card with the name on it. Yeah. Oh shit, it's real.
Yeah.
It's real. Like, I want to. What can I do to solidify its realness? Right? Because that's how it was for me. Like,
and then taxes coming out through.
Yeah. No, but that's taxes. That's another story. But cool. I mean, but that's like, because I know. I feel like you learned through your progress, but like, it is true. It's not always, again, I'm sure you've already felt it, because it's been, like, what you said, a year since you opened it, or?
Yeah, I filed in February.
Okay.
So it's November now, so almost a year. Yeah, that was a big moment for me. I think one before that though is last year. Was it last year? No, it had to be 2020. is when I had like my first big day in the market where it became profitable. Like, and it was like the first, but it was like $1,500 in one day. So it was like I hadn't made that money like that yet. So that was definitely another big moment for me.
Nice.
So
Yeah.
I definitely love trading. I feel like everybody. That's another thing I like to represent is like, you know, you don't just have to do one thing. You can do many things the average millionaire has 7 ways that they make that make them a millionaire, like 7 sources of income. So I'm very big on multiple sources. But yeah.
It's this is how because I believe that, don't get me wrong, but like I see things in a different light. You ask, I think like what a lot of people get caught up on. Again, this is not to say that I'm I want you to understand that I'm not right all the fucking time.
Right.
I make mistakes. Sometimes the things that I believe can be completely wrong. This is not. I'm not here to brainwash or to do. I'm just giving you what I think, right? And this is a big one because a lot of people it's this way or this way, right? So I used to think like, okay, millionaire is the truth. This is it's a proven stat, right? Where it's like 7, 8, 9 figure earners have multiple streams of income. But the question is, how did they make their first million? Right? Because I remember having this conversation where it's like, because I'm very big on focus on one thing until you're big enough and then branch.
Yeah.
Right? Because I had this conversation where like, you know, people tried to recruit you, you know, come do this, come do this, come do that. And I remember this one guy, let's call him, whatever. He was like, hey, I have 4 streams of income now. You know, why don't you come join me? And I just didn't like the way he presented himself to me, right? Where it's one thing to be like, hey, this is what I do, blah, blah, blah. But it was just like, dude, drop what you do, come with me. That's how he did it. And then, you know, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm like, fuck you. This is my thing, right?
Yeah.
And I asked him, I was like, hey, if you don't mind me asking, how much money do you make per stream of income? He's like, yeah, I make 1,000 here, 1,000 here, 1,000 here, 1,000 here. So you make $4,000 a month. Why the hell would I go over there?
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking. But it's however you see fit, right? But it's just like me, like that's what I heard. Is growing up, that's what all I knew was like, okay, you gotta put all your shit here. But it's not smart. Of course it's smart doing so, but I'm playing the long game. I don't know where I heard it. Maybe I'm not even gonna pat myself on the back because I didn't make this up, but I heard this where they said, if you wanna lose money, bet against me. And that's kind of how I approach life, where it's like, and I think I am good at what I do because this is all I do.
Yeah.
Right?
No, I mean, yeah, and I can be the prime example for that too. Like I thought, like, hey, I'm gonna start this business, and this business. You know, little did I know, we spent like
hundreds of thousands,
a lot of money into a slingshot company because I thought I went to Miami and I went to go rent out a slingshot. And then I just started doing the math. I'm like, this guy must be making a shit ton of money. You know, he just has, if we get a couple slingshots, we'll do it. Little did I know, I mean, one thing has to do with partners, but like I was the one kind of trying to balance everything, not including the store that I had, not including coming in with packs and stuff like that. Like a jack of all trades is a master of none, right? So I couldn't balance everything. I was literally like, even this year was the year where I was like, I'm letting this fucking thing go. Like I can't do this anymore. Like I want to focus on one thing. And that's it. So like now that this office is kind of like here now and stuff, like my dedication is being here because I see this more long term. Cookies and Kicks, like it's a good business and it's there and it's like it's fashion. It's never gonna leave. But we got to the point where we hired somebody to manage the internal of the store, and it's able to do its thing. So with that being said, like it's not always good to just open up a new business and go over here and do all this stuff. It's a headache at the end of the day, and you're not gonna be able to be everywhere at once. So I can be an example for that one for sure.
Yeah, and I want to understand that part of this podcast, I don't know if we explained it to you, but it's the fact that like we're gonna show you the truth. Like,
yeah, facts.
It's hard for you to relate to the Jeff Bezos and the Elon Musks of the world because you don't have their problems, right? Like, and it's another thing to be able to, because that's what I struggled with is like we look up to people that have you know, they're not just years ahead of us. They're right. They are kind of not out of reach because like I always say this, where I'm like, Elon, I'm coming for you. Like I'm coming. Like, but it's to show you that even if where you are, we're not that much. It doesn't take that much time with the resources you have available to get to the next step. That's all. That's what it is. The next step. It's not to get from A to Z. It's going from A, then B, then C, ultimately, right? But it is true. Where like I remember when he asked me that, and it takes a lot. I mean, I'm sure like it's not. He's there's a level of confidence to be able to say like, yo, it didn't work. But that's what it is to make sure that we're not master business.
Learn from our mistakes.
Learn. But it is to show, look, this is what happens during the process. It's to make these mistakes, and you see that live time, where it's not some older dude talking about or older woman talking about. Yeah, I made this mistake.
Yeah, when I was
like you're learning with
20 years now and stuff like that.
Yeah. So it's big though. Like you guys are saying, like you have to stay focused.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things that I've read where it's like if you really dedicate 3 to 6 months and you're just fully focused, you're not really prioritizing your social life. You're just staying focused on what you need to. That can put you years in advance.
100%.
So it's big to just make sure you know what it is you want to focus on. Mm-hmm. Focus is really the key here.
One thing I do want to ask you, especially coming from like from my perspective, I know you mentioned like you listen to Andy and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. I don't know if there's any other, because I know there's like female podcasts that a lot of like girls listen to and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. I never tapped into those. What are you reading up on? What are you listening to? Like, who's your kind of like mentor in a way, or who do you listen to?
So I will definitely mention this female. She's big on social media in a sense where she's grown her business through network marketing. Mm. And since my field, my business is in social media, I learned a lot from her. And her name is Mina Moves. I don't know if you guys have heard of her, but she has become very successful in what she does through social media. Mm. And she will host a lot of Zooms, or not so much now. I feel like she's pretty busy, but she has a team now, and it's a lot of just entrepreneurship, and it's a lot of books that they recommend. And so I'm big on reading. I've become big on reading, and it's I see how she lives her life, and I'm like, okay, like this is somebody I would want to listen to because she has she's achieved stuff that I want to achieve. So her name is Mina Moves. Another one is, and I've was introduced to him through the foreign exchange academy that I was part of, and his name is Kevin Torres. He goes by Neno, and he every morning, like Monday through Friday, he has a Zoom, and it's his it's called Mornings with Neno, and every morning there's a topic. It's the 5 principles of success. There's a bunch of things that he teaches every single morning, and he's been dedicated to that for years now. So I've been listening to him for a long time now. So I like waking up and just, listening to him while I'm starting my morning and I'm getting into my trading mode. And those two people, like, they're not, they're not maybe the most popular, but they're definitely very disciplined, and, they're achieving things that I think they're very relatable, and that's who I like to really keep in touch with and like keep my eyes on.
Communicate with them often?
I've communicated with Neno, and then Mina Moves, she's a little harder to communicate with. I think she has a lot going on, but yeah, they're definitely people that I look up to a lot.
Cool. Yeah.
Good to know. Well, I am in the same shoes as you. I hate reading, but I read.
Yeah.
And I did this because of Andy.
75 hard?
No, I did it because, so I always tell people 2017 September I changed my life. It wasn't because of money. It was just a mental switch for me in that year. He talks about a power list. I don't know if you ever. Yeah. So the power list was one of them. Yeah. So it talked about reading 10 pages. Where he was like, you can't audiobook, you can't do any of this shit. And I was like, what the hell? Reading. and he says, you can't Kindle, you can't do anything. Get a damn book and read it. And of course I'm listening because he's inspired me, but it's like, it's the act of reading that you don't want to, but you did it anyway. So every time I was reading, because I only read 10 pages, like you were not going to catch me reading any at the time. Now I'm like, if I like the book, I'll continue to read. Okay. But at that point, it was just to create the habit where I was like, I would read like 4 pages and be like, how many pages did I read? Oh shit, I got 1 more page, right? But at the end of every time I read, it became like, oh shit, I did it. I didn't even want to. A year ago, or even a couple of weeks ago, I would have just went to bed. But I read before doing whatever, and I was like, that helped me. Like, even now, like I know I have to read. Like today I have to read.
Yeah.
Because this morning was just, obviously it's Monday, so it's a little busy, but having those like what is it, little check marks off your day, I think do help in the long game. It is that. So, any books that you recommend?
Let's see. I like the 5 a.m. Club. I was definitely never a morning person.
Yeah, I don't think anybody is.
Yeah, I think, yeah. And I had to be because I wanted to trade. Yeah. And it's like, I need to make sure I have those moments before I trade where I'm like really active and aware and stuff. So that book put me to get into that zone and accepting like, okay, you need to just wake the fuck up. and
yeah, I'm sure you got that question right. How do you wake up early?
So now it happens naturally, thank God. That
but it's still not easy, right? It's still like, gosh.
It's not easy when like I've had like a bad weekend where like I went out or something. But honestly, like what makes it easy is the market. Like it's 6:30. Like shoot, I need to wake up. I need to. I have that intense. Definitely motivates me. But it was not easy at all. I would make sure to go to sleep really early, and like before I was more like a night owl, but not saying that people should do this, but smoking weed, going to sleep early, and that way I wake up earlier, like that helped me, honestly.
That's what he told me. I can't do that. So I'm not a big smoker, but I remember, I think it was because my tolerance was low. It's I haven't smoked in a long time.
Yeah.
I actually smoked for the first time recently, but I was smoking, I would sleep, and I would wake up like, oh my god.
Like you're groggy.
Okay, yeah, so that makes sense if you're not a smoker. I was like kind of already, but now it's like, I love when like it's, I watch sunset and I'm like, okay, I'm able to go to sleep like an hour or 2 afterwards because like I'll smoke a joint or something. Yeah. And then I love when I go to sleep like at 7, 8 o'clock. 7's pretty early, but like 8 o'clock.
I was about to say, damn.
But it's happened, and 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock is like, I'll try to go to bed by then, and then I wake up like randomly, and it's only like 11:30, and it feels like I slept so long. Yeah. And it's like, oh no, I have the whole night, and so I definitely like had to just be comfortable with sleeping early, and then that way I wake up early. Yeah, because
people always ask me, right? Like, yo, how do you wake up early? How do you like, what trick do you have? And I don't have a trick,
like cold shower, like a lot. Like, I can't do that.
But the thing is like, because cold showers help.
They do,
yeah, but it's not about, you're already up. For you to have turned the shower on means you're up, right? So, like, because I was like, there's intent. I think as long as there's a why, you'll do what you need to do, right? And I think a lot of times people say they want to wake up early because it's that's what everyone says. Kobe says it. Everyone says waking up early, you have so much more time in the day, but they don't believe it.
Yeah.
They just want, and that's why it's hard for you. And I've come to dissect that because there are times where I'm like, oh, I cannot wake up. Yeah. But I can. I just choose not to.
No, yeah,
and then they were a big part of my life required me waking up early, so I had to. But the difference is you not wanting to. You saying, I'm going to wake up because I want to make something of my life, early to make something of my life, but you don't, that just shows you your why is not strong enough.
Yeah.
Right.
I think another good thing, I think we can all relate with this, is having a dog.
Oh, yeah.
Will wake you up. You have kind of no choice.
Shout out Jasmine.
At least she takes care of it.
Yeah. Because, I've already become a morning person, but I realized, like, having my puppy, I've only had her since, like, July.
Oh,
Like,
oh shit.
yeah,
Puppy.
yeah, so I'm a new dog mom, but I cannot like breathe differently because if I do, she'll be right there to like wake me up, like
Yeah.
start kissing me and stuff. So that's like if you need some type of motivation to wake up early, get a dog maybe. Cause
Now I wake up earlier than my dog. Like,
oh yeah.
He used to wake me up at like 7:30, and then like 8 o'clock was like usually the time I try to be up. But lately I've been on a, I don't know, I feel like I've been getting used to being up earlier.
Yeah.
Now I'm trying to get to that 5:30.
Yeah. All right. But I do want to end it like this, right? Because this is something that actually, like, when I heard this weekend, like, I even asked you, I was like, there any points in time where you got emotional? Right.
Mm-hmm.
And it caught me because one of the speakers, he said, you don't have to win every fight, but you have to fight every fight, right? And he meant that in the physical aspect, where because he was imprisoned, and he was talking about literally fighting people. You don't have to win, but you cannot not fight, otherwise they're gonna keep fucking with you.
Yeah.
But then he applied that to life, to business, where it's like you don't have to win every obstacle or whatever it is. Sometimes you'll lose, but it's important that you try anyway, right? So I want to leave it like that with you guys, because I think a lot of times people don't do things because they're scared to, or they're scared to fail. Like I was explaining to you, I didn't join a group because I was afraid to get rejected. But now it's like, okay, it is like, I'm gonna do it anyway. What's that's gonna happen is no. And if they say no, I'm gonna reply. Right? So keep that in mind, that again, I'm gonna reiterate it, or I'm gonna repeat it. You don't have to win every fight, but you do have to fight every fight, right? And you can take that in whatever aspect that you want, or apply that in any aspect that you want. But it has helped me. I'm sure it's helped all of you, like both of you guys. But yeah, that's kind of what kind of stuck with me. So
Smooth. Well, I think this is a really good podcast, especially, our first time having a female on board. So we appreciate you coming on, and thank you for all the words you give, and like the whole audience. And if there's any females watching, hopefully you guys were able to learn something new, especially coming from a female herself. We appreciate you guys watching. Again, this is another episode of SelfPaid. Again, thank you, Alex.
Thank you.
I appreciate you. Myself, Alex, we'll see you guys on the next podcast.
peace.